One.
The story begins on a quiet evening in Los Angeles, where a car is seen moving to a particular rhythm. From the outside, one would assume some people are getting freaky, but it turns out it's a middle-aged woman beating the shit out of a gangster. After a bit of struggle, she unalives him and dumps him in the trunk of her car. Later, this same woman heads into a van to treat a fatal injury she sustained on her thigh during the fight. She sanitizes it with some alcohol, uses a stapler to stitch it up, and covers it with some duct tape. She then finds a package in the van, bringing back a nostalgic feeling from her past. 5 years earlier, Riley North, the woman, lived a quiet, working-class life with her husband Chris and their young daughter, Carly. Still in the flashback, Chris works at a car repair shop, while Riley does her best to balance her job at a bank with taking care of her family. On Carly's 5th birthday, Riley drops her off with Chris, after having a little snafu with a mean rich woman named Peg at the parking lot when she picked her up from school. Carly had invited all her friends over for her birthday, so Riley, after dropping her off, heads back to work to inform her boss that she'd be closing early. Unfortunately, her boss refuses and forces her to work late. That same afternoon,
Lives change. Our kids' lives change.
Chris's work colleague tries to convince him to join a small job involving stealing money from Diego Garcia, a notorious drug lord. Although Chris is against the idea, he thinks about how much he could change his family's situation if it goes well, so he considers it. To her surprise, when Riley finally gets home from a long day at work, she finds out that nobody had shown up for her daughter's party. She then finds out that Peg had intentionally organized a get-together party and had her daughter, who happened to be Carly's classmate, invite the whole class just to get back at Riley. Devastated, both parents suggest taking Carly to a carnival to cheer her up, and she gets really excited at the idea.
Ice cream! Yes, heck yes!
Later that night, Chris turns down the robbery idea with his co-worker. He's just not that kind of person. Besides, things could get really ugly considering the person they plan to rob, so he decides to enjoy the evening with his loving family. However, unknown to him, Garcia's people had already found out about the planned theft. They find Chris's co-worker quickly, abduct him, and torture him for a while before executing him. Diego then sends some men after Chris to teach him a lesson for even considering robbing him. Meanwhile, at the carnival, Chris and his family spend the evening playing games, laughing, and enjoying family time. When they eventually return to their car after the carnival, a black SUV pulls up, and 3 cartel gunmen open fire without hesitation. Chris and Carly, who are closer to the road, get unalived instantly, while Riley is critically injured in the process. Days later, when Riley wakes up in the hospital, a man approaches her and introduces himself as Detective Stan Carmichael. Although he knows it's not a good time to intrude, he tells her a group of suspects has been apprehended, and they'll need her help identifying the people involved. Riley follows him to an investigation room, and, due to her superb memory, identifies the 3 shooters in the police lineup. The killers are arrested, and the cops trace the operation back to Diego Garcia. A while after the arrest, a higher-up confronts Carmichael and tells him to drop the case if he wants to leave, as Diego is not the type of man even detectives can mess with. A couple of days later, Riley gets discharged from the hospital, so she returns home and begins to pack up her stuff as she prepares to testify in court. While she packs, a strange man walks into the apartment and offers her a huge amount of cash to drop the case, stating that it's pointless to think she can win. Enraged, she throws his money back at him and orders him to leave.
Just to clarify one point.
However, during the hearing, it becomes clear that the entire process is rigged. The defense attorney, who turns out to be the man who approached her, manipulates the situation. The judge, who is secretly paid off by Diego's cartel, dismisses the case due to a lack of credible evidence. Watching the shooters who unalived her family get released, Riley goes into a rage and tries to attack them, but is stopped by guards. The judge then remands her to a mental health treatment program. On the way to the mental hospital, Riley attacks the staff taking her and escapes. Days later, after a while of searching for her, the authorities declare her missing, assuming she has either fled or taken her own life. Back in the present, a new string of murders draws the attention of local law enforcement and the media, as the 3 men who killed Riley's husband and daughter are found dead and hanging upside down at the location of the carnival 5 years earlier. Later, the detectives get a report that the suspect was identified to be a woman, so they start to consider if it really could have been her. They immediately hold a meeting, where they discuss the way Riley had suddenly disappeared after stealing a large sum of money from her workplace 5 years earlier. They pull up random clips on the internet, confirming that Riley had traveled all around the world and gone through a massive character development arc before returning. After confirming the date to be the death anniversary of her family, the agents find surveillance proving that Riley is back in Los Angeles. She's been spotted buying some specific kind of guns and ammunition, so the officers assume the worst. Meanwhile, Riley pays a visit to the corrupt judge, who dismissed her case. She takes her time torturing him, nailing his hands to his desk and covering his mouth with duct tape so he won't be able to scream. She then ties him to his chair with a deet cord, an explosive rope which has enough power to cut through concrete, before she leaves. Shortly after, she detonates a bomb she had set in the office through a phone call, and the judge explodes like fireworks. Shortly after, the attorney who had also opposed Riley during the trial is found mysteriously dead in his swimming pool. When the officers are informed of the recent deaths, they conclude that Riley is indeed the person behind them. Detectives Beltran and Carmichael then lead the investigation to stop her. Diego's men report to him that Riley North, a woman he barely even remembers, is methodically taking down everyone connected to his cartel. Hearing this, Diego grows restless and orders one of his lieutenants to find her and try bribing her with a massive amount of money to make her stop. Meanwhile, Riley is on her way to her next operation when she spots a little boy on a train who looks like he's constantly being abused by his drunk father. The sight brings back flashes of her own daughter, Carly, and she can't turn a blind eye. When they get to their stop, she follows them out and confronts the father while he's buying alcohol at a convenience store. She snatches his ID card, memorizes his address, and threatens him at gunpoint to treat his son properly from that day forward, or things won't end well for him. Intimidated, the man nods and agrees. Before leaving, Riley also warns the store clerk never to sell alcohol to the man again. She borrows the clerk's car keys, hands him a bundle of cash for the inconvenience, and drives off. With the borrowed car, Riley heads toward one of Diego's major operations, a money laundering hub guarded by heavily armed men. When she arrives, she surveys the perimeter and quickly realizes there's no easy way in. So she disguises herself as a homeless woman, limping toward the gate while mumbling incoherently. The guards block her path, but before they can shoo her away, she catches them off guard, disarms them with precise strikes, and eliminates them silently. Around this time, Riley's face starts appearing on news reports, labeling her a dangerous fugitive. The authorities warn that she's armed, unstable, and extremely dangerous. Once inside, she spots several cartel members counting cash and handling drugs. She opens fire on the cartel workers, moving from cover to cover. But as the numbers overwhelm her, she dives through a back window and lands in a nearby toy store, where she lures her pursuers in one by one and eliminates them. After wiping out nearly all the men, she spares one survivor and orders him to report everything directly to Diego. When the survivor returns to Diego's mansion and stammers out what happened, Diego is furious to learn that Riley not only wiped out his crew, but also burned every dollar stored in the base. Realizing that she's dismantling his empire piece by piece, he orders double security at all remaining locations. Then, still seething, he tells his men to find her before sunset, or else, as he puts it, she'll use their blood as lipstick.
Some are speculating are part of a pattern.
Meanwhile, Riley's growing notoriety spreads across television and social media. The public begins debating her actions, and surprisingly, many start viewing her as a vigilante hero, a woman delivering the justice that the system failed to give her. Videos of her raids and her tragic past circulate everywhere, and she becomes both feared and admired. At the police station, investigators examine the scene of her latest attack, trying to figure out how she keeps surviving impossible odds. Through surveillance records from a nearby port, they discover that Riley had arrived in Los Angeles 3 months earlier, but deliberately kept a low profile until recently. Realizing she's been planning her war carefully, they begin searching for her possible hideout. Elsewhere, Diego and his inner circle gather to assess the damage. They wonder how Riley seems to know each of their locations and operations so precisely. After some heated back and forth, they conclude that she must have been watching them for a while now, collecting intel before striking. Through this deduction, they predict that her next target will be their drug lab. Determined to end things once and for all, Diego orders a trap. That night, Riley arrives at the lab with a fully loaded assault rifle, ready for battle. But as soon as she steps inside, she senses something off as the entire place is eerily silent. As she moves deeper, she spots a bomb blinking at the center of the room. Realizing the setup, she bolts for the exit, just as the cartel detonates it. A huge explosion rips through the building, but Riley narrowly escapes through a hidden underground passage before the impact hits her. When Riley emerges from the pavement across the street, a concerned civilian rushes toward her, asking if she's okay. Still shaken, she swiftly pulls a GTA move and hijacks his car, speeding off with it. Meanwhile, Diego receives a report about the successful obliteration, so he orders his men back. However, on their way back to the main base, they notice a car following them closely behind for a while, before it suddenly vanishes. When they make a sharp turn, they find the same car parked directly in front of them. Before they get to process anything, Riley pops out and takes them out easily. Back at Diego's mansion, while Diego celebrates his victory, news channels begin reporting eyewitness accounts that Riley had been seen hijacking a civilian's car earlier. Diego's brief moment of relief then turns to dread as he realizes that he might actually be cooked. Moments later, the cartel members he sent out return, or so it seems. When the guards open the gates, they discover too late that Riley had hidden herself among their bodies in the car. She ambushes them as soon as she's inside, taking out guard after guard with expert aim. The chaos then alerts Diego as Riley storms through his mansion. Unlike most of the cartels who just die like Soulja Boy's music career, some actually cause her a bit of a challenge. But due to the training she has acquired over the years, Riley triumphs. One by one, they fall until she reaches Diego himself, who is visibly terrified. Riley raises her gun to send him after his men, but suddenly freezes when she notices his young daughter standing nearby. Memories of Carly flood her mind, clouding her judgment. Seizing the moment, Diego lunges at her and stabs her in the side before fleeing through a back exit. Bleeding heavily, Riley musters all her strength and escapes the compound just before police units, who had tracked gunfire reports, surround the area. Later, Riley limps into the home of her old enemy, Peg, who is now living miserably as her husband left her for somebody prettier. She ties Peg to a chair, raids her cabinets for medical supplies, and treats her wound with shaky hands. Peg screams at her, but Riley ignores the noise, leaving her restrained as she walks out. On the other side of the city, Carmichael and Inman, a fellow detective, find Riley's base, an area filled with homeless people. They're shocked to learn that Riley is being worshipped by the people in the area for being their guardian angel. They find the van where Riley stores her ammunition and supplies, while a few of the homeless people stare at them. However, as Inman continues searching, Carmichael suddenly turns on her. Unknown to everyone, Carmichael has been on Diego's payroll for years. Without hesitation, he shoots Inman and disposes of her body in a nearby trash bin before calling Diego to reveal the hideout's location. Following the report, Diego summons a large number of cartels from God knows where and heads to the location for the final confrontation. When they get there, they start to terrorize all the homeless people while searching for Riley. Riley, who is already passed out from blood loss in an uncompleted building in the area, gets approached by some of the men as well. Before they get to her, the ghost of Carly, her daughter, appears to her and wakes her up. So she takes the men down and loots their weapons. When the next batch arrives, Riley uses a flash grenade to stun them before taking them down. She then uses their walkie-talkie to order Diego to leave, but knowing how injured she is, he senses her bluff and decides to take things up a notch. He grabs one of the homeless people Riley protects and gives her an ultimatum to show up before he unalives her. Meanwhile, at the police station, officers try to reach Inman, but there's no response. Tracing the ringing tone, Riley finds the phone in a trash can next to Inman's deceased body. She immediately uses it to go live, broadcasting Diego and his men terrorizing innocent people. The footage spreads online within minutes, exposing Carmichael as a corrupt cop and alerting the authorities. Knowing she can't stall forever, Riley answers Diego's call and walks into the open.
Are you okay? I knew you'd save me.
Surrounded by his men, she drops her weapons as ordered. To provoke him, she mocks him for hiding behind others and challenges him to face her directly. Enraged, Diego steps forward and begins beating her mercilessly, exploiting her injury. Still, she refuses to back down. Before he can finish her, police sirens blare in the distance, forcing the cartel to scatter. Furious, Diego accuses Carmichael of betraying him and shoots him dead on the spot before fleeing into the shadows. Determined not to let him escape, Riley grabs a fallen gun and chases him through the debris-filled streets. She eventually corners him and beats him to a pulp before pointing a gun at him. The police arrive moments later, yelling for Riley to drop the weapon. However, she can't bring herself to trust them again after how the system failed her 5 years ago. Without hesitation, she pulls the trigger and unalives Diego, ending everything once and for all.
Negative.
Exhausted and barely conscious, Riley escapes from the scene.
I've missed you.
Later that night, police find her passed out at the cemetery, lying near the graves of her husband and daughter. They immediately call for an ambulance and rush her to the hospital. Days later, Riley wakes up in a hospital bed, her arm cuffed to the rail. Officers stand guard outside the door, ready to take her into custody. Detective Beltran visits her, acknowledging that although she broke the law, she delivered justice when no one else would. Without saying much, he hands her the key to handcuffs and walks away, leaving Riley with the freedom to decide her own fate. The end. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video.